Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod. We have Charity Majors with us today. She's in leadership. She's a community and culture developer, an expert in team building, emotional intelligence, communication. She's ran a bunch of businesses. I'm on her website here, an author, an international speaker, a podcaster. So we're going to talk about that today, maybe talk about God as well. It's going to be a fun one. Podpire is presenting this one. Podpire is my podcasting company. If you want to start and monetize a podcast, you can do so with Podpire. We have a free ebook teaching you how to monetize through lead gen, sponsors, and AdSense. So podpire.com for that. Charity, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here and have a good conversation. I always love chatting with founders, and like you guys are my people. So, besides being a recovering plant killer, I am a wife, a mom, all those fun, fancy things that you heard as far as community builder, a leadership developer, founder as well. Yeah, all the fun things that I tend to fail forward and figure out along the way, right? I don't think any of us have it all together. So that's me.
So you said plant killer? Like, how did that happen? A plant killer? That's pretty bad.
I know. I used to not be able to keep a plant alive to save my life. And now I can.
Okay.
Our house has an atrium in the middle of it, and I have lots of plants in there, so I can officially keep plants alive, and I keep my kids alive too. So we're we're moving on up.
And what was your first business? I see fitness in there. Was that like your first serious venture?
I was in the corporate world in the wellness industry, actually helped major companies uh, and universities kind of build out some different employee wellness programs and training and leadership and some fun things like that. And kind of got to the point where I would guess that a lot of us do in the corporate world, where I wanted a little bit more say so over my vacation days. I'd kind of topped out the pay scale and wasn't necessarily interested in climbing the corporate ladder as it was. And so I jumped out of corporate and kind of belly flopped into the entrepreneurial space and started my own fitness business. And so I had my own in-person like wellness studio, award-winning business that and ended up getting a TV show from that for 5 years. And so kind of failed forward as far as what it looked like to learn marketing and to, promotion and building a brand and kind of becoming an industry expert. So that was my rough draft into into the entrepreneurial world. And about 15 years later, here we are.
Yeah, it's pretty rock and roll rides, but it's so fulfilling, right? My question is, when did God became a central part of your life? Because yeah, I see on the website there's the word God in a lot of places. Was there like a pivotal moment, or was that always that way?
Well, I grew up in a Christian house, and so actually, God's always been a big part of my life, and I think that it has been a part of just some guiding principles for me. So my company, I actually have like my company. It's called Business and Bubbly, and it's nationwide networking chapters for women in business. Now, my company is not faith based. I am. Obviously, those are my core beliefs, but a lot of my core beliefs actually help kind of guide and anchor some of the different things that we do within our community and also how I build business. If it's like, oh, okay, if God, the creator of the universe, he clearly knows how to be able to build things or how, like, the really great order of how to be able to do things. Well, if I actually partner with that divine design and I'm able to implement that within my community or within my business, then like, why wouldn't I want to be able to partner with, the one that created me, and how to be able to implement that into business. So for me, it's, oh, what does it look like for heaven on earth in community? Oh, heaven on earth in finances, heaven on earth in business, heaven on earth in community, heaven on earth among women and relationships and connections. So those are some guiding principles that I use.
And do you feel these are the number one problems that your clients face most of the time? I guess like women entrepreneurs, is it relationship? Is it money? How do you help them solve that?
Yeah, a lot of times at first, they kind of dive into our networking chapters, into our communities, because they're really craving that genuine connection, right? In our world today, in this digital age that we have, right? It's really great. Like you and I, we were able to connect on an app for podcasting, and now here we are, like talking, on this really great digital space. Like that's amazing. And nothing actually replaces the magic of what happens when we get heart to heart, business to business, belly to belly connection for us as human beings. And a lot of times, women, and I think even just entrepreneurs in general, it can feel really, really lonely. And it can feel really, really isolating. It can feel really like, oh, I'm just on my computer all day, every day, trying to grow this dream that I have in my heart, but I don't really know how to be able to build it. So they join first because of the community, and then they stay because we help them grow their business and we help them make connections. Like networking is one of the unfair advantages that anyone can have when they actually have a really valuable network around them. It becomes a marketing army for them and for their business.
Right. And how do you build these thriving communities? I start my funnel with podcasts, and eventually some of these folks become my clients. Then I get to invest in the best businesses that I initially talked to on the podcast. And then I physically meet them one day at some conference, or if I'm at X city, I'm going to build a mastermind. Last one, we went to a spa, hit the sauna, the cold plunge, brainstormed. What is your quote unquote funnel, and how do you maximize the outcome of these physical communities slash masterminds of yours?
Yeah, well, I love this conversation because I think, first of all, building a community based business will be one of the things that sets people apart. And when it comes to like people will come to, so say for an event, right? They're going to come for the content. So, for example, I actually recently spoke at an event with some major influencers, Chris and Lori Harder, with Dean Graciosi on stage, shared the stage with him. And people will come to an event for the content, but they will actually come back because of the community. People will come to a mastermind because of the content, or maybe because there's an influencer or a name, but they will actually come back over and over and over. This is actually the continuity program that you can start to build an ongoing membership, is because of the connections that are made within the community. And so when you can have that community focused business, then from there, and I love this, one of my mentors, Russell Brunson, he talks about how if you find a market, you ask them what they want and you give it to them, your business will never go dry. So if you actually have a community as the foundation and you ask them what they want and then you give it to them, you become the person that can give it to them. Then it doesn't matter what your funnel is, because you're actually just serving your community. You're serving your audience with exactly what it is that they want.
Yeah, you're constantly adding value. How much should I pay for coaching, for example? What would be in that program precisely?
Which program? Because I think it depends. So a membership for networking is a little bit lower ticket price. So I'll give you an example of this. So, or kind of an analogy of what I like to say is, if you think about like a fireplace and you're starting a fire, there's going to be like kind of the fire starters. So like little sticks, right? Your like little sticks. So these are your freebies. These are your offer, like your free thing, your podcast, your blog, your content, that kind of a thing. Those are your like little sticks. Then you get kind of medium, or smaller sticks that will help light like the newspaper, or the little sticks that are at the bottom. And so those ones for us within our funnel, within our continuity program, within our business model, that's the membership for the women in business. Then a little bit more of the medium logs for us that what we sell is then someone can become a chapter director or a regional leader. So this is where they actually start to lead the community, or they start to lead the leaders of the communities, and they start to recruit them. And then for me personally, my big logs on the fire, if you will, are more of my high ticket, where for me as a speaker, as an author, I actually go into corporate companies and do speaking workshops where companies hire me to come in and do some leadership development, culture development. I just published my newest book. It's called Networking Mastery. And so companies are able to license out programs that I have. And that is more of the log that I have for me on the fire for more of the high ticket programs.
So anywhere from a couple $100 to like 5 figures, I would guess.
One of the proposals that I just sent a week ago to a company that wanted to hire me was it had 3 tiers. So the first tier was, and it just depended on what the tier, but the highest ticket tier in that was 125,000.
Good job. How can we make value offerings or value ladders, as Brunson called them? How can we make these simple? Is it just brainstorming with ChatGPT about your skills, your ikigai, and having it pitch a couple of products? Then how do you pitch these products? What if someone wants to skip the ladder and buy directly the high ticket? How do you manage that?
Well, I think it honestly goes back to the very simple concept of find a hot market, ask for what they want, and give it to them, right? So that is a very simple concept when it comes to your different tiers, to your different levels of what it is that you're offering. One thing that I did find, and I have found this, is it actually also depends on, okay, what's your expertise that you have? And how can it intersect with what the market is wanting, as well as what they're willing to pay for it? So for example, as a speaker, as an author, for me, with different programs that I have online, different online courses, different books, all of this fun stuff in the entrepreneurial space, that's like pretty basic to where, I could offer, so say it's my networking mastery course. It's a six module course. You get a whole like digital companion guide. And in the entrepreneurial world, I could probably sell that for $500 to $1,000, depending on what the offer was with it. But if I actually take that same program and license it to corporate or to a university, so I'm pitching this program to colleges who also need the career advancement to teach their students, and they get bulk pricing into my thing, that's where it turns into a $35,000, a $50,000, a $70,000, a $100,000 program, because that is the actual market that will pay bulk pricing for it. So I might sell 100 seats, I might sell 200 seats, I might sell 500 seats into that program at a bulk discount price compared to 10, 20, 30 people into my individual program, if that makes sense. So it depends on the market that you're selling it to.
Right. And you kept coming back to product market fit. Do you have a system for that? For example, I use podcasting, I use LinkedIn polls, I use emails. I get tons of feedbacks, and then I compress it with ChatGPT to help me get these better insights, or a bunch of other AIs about what could be my potentially viable product market fit. Right. There's also gut feeling, of course, but I find that to be less reliable. Do you have a system to find what is the best offer to the best market?
I think yes to using ChatGPT. I think the easiest way is to ask people what they want. Is to get like that real raw market research. So any way that you can pull in those market research questions, again, find a hot market, ask for what they want, and give it to them. So it's like having certain conversations, or one of the things I'm actually playing around with right now, which is really fun, and it's converting really, really well, is actually a free quiz. And so if you go to businessandbuilby.com/quiz, it will actually give you, it's a quick 14 question quiz that actually gives me market insight. And then I'm able to then branch people off into different offers based off of how they answered it.
Yeah, LinkedIn polls also is a good way to do that. It's just that when I ask people, like you said, when we started the bot, there's like an authenticity problem. Uh, in this market, people will tell you stuff, but they don't really mean it right. And it's not until they pay you that you know that you have a product market fit or you're onto something. Me personally, I also include Ikigai philosophy into all of that, right? I love working with CEOs and founders just like you. I hate working with corporate, and I have a direct question related to that after this. But yeah, I love working with these people. Now, what am I good at? What can I get paid for? What does the world need? And
Yep.
I start with that Canva usually. How do you actually sell to corporate? I've always sucked at selling to corporate. Maybe that's because I sort of dislike the 9 to 5 mentality.
Well, let me say, so coming from corporate and then being in the entrepreneurial space and now going back into corporate, what's really interesting is I'm going back into these corporate and collegiate settings, but on my terms instead of on their terms as an employee, right? So now as a vendor, I actually get to set the terms of the of the products, of the projects, of the workshops, of my pay scale compared to me being an employee and them setting that. So going back into corporate, but on my terms is very different than being in corporate on their terms. Right. Because I'm not going back as 9 to 5. I'm not going back as a employee. I'm not going back for like what I was doing in corporate compared to actually going back on my terms. So there's a very big difference on what that looks like. And what I've learned is that in the entrepreneurial space, corporate actually needs so many of the skills that we have picked up as entrepreneurs. They need the leadership development. They need the mindset. Half of corporate, like they don't even know what mindset stuff is, or they don't do a gratitude journal, or they don't do like some of the basic things that we learned the hard way of what it is that we need along the way. And so they're actually, because they actually understand that when a corporation, when corporate invests into leadership development or into employee retention, actually saves them money, and they understand return on investment. So when corporate invests in one of my leadership programs, on average, they actually get back, for every dollar they invest, they get back $4.36. So that's like,
Science.
right? So it's like, oh, there's actually return on, like very physical return on investment that they can see. And they understand this in the corporate world. In the entrepreneurial world, we tend to have to do a little bit more convincing of, oh, hey, if you join the mastermind, like you're going to get way more than what your return on investment is of joining this $10,000 mastermind. Right. And
Right.
so corporate, because they are very like, they have to have those return on investment numbers, where in the entrepreneurial space, a lot of times, like I'm not the numbers girl. Like I have my accountant that has to figure out the numbers for me because I'm not the numbers girl. So for me to like say, okay, I'm going to invest in this $25,000 mastermind for founders or whatever it is, to like, a lot of times in the entrepreneurial space, they don't have those numbers to be able to give back to someone that's investing. Like, do I know that if I invest into it and I bet on myself into a mastermind, absolutely there'll be a return on investment because I'm betting on me. But corporate actually has those numbers because they can do it at scale. It is also is a little bit of a different language. So in the entrepreneurial founder space, right, we say, oh, you can get my e-course, you can get my online course, you can get into my, get my downloadable PDF. In the entrepreneur or in the corporate space, the language is a little bit different, right? So it's now a PDF in the entrepreneurial space is now a digital companion guide, which sounds way more fancy, and you can charge way more for it in the corporate world.
Wow. Yeah. I feel like, yeah, I don't have much tools to get into there because I'm so raw. And yes, I use terms that most don't even know what that means, like product market fit, for example, PMF, ICP, and so forth. My question is more, I've been cold emailing for all these years because it's so efficient, the ROI as a lead gen method, right? And then I get stuck in their silly corporate spam filters, even if I'm quite good at deliverability. Uh, and then I don't know who to target. I'm guessing there must be brains in these organizations, but what are the titles? Then do I need to go like the ABM route, account-based marketing? Do you have like an automated system for that, or is that mostly your gut and you're sending manual stuff and eventually that converts?
No, I think it depends on actually knowing who the decision makers are and what their titles are and how to be able to get a hold of them. And then nurturing, like anything, it's nurturing those relationships and those connections for the long haul, right? In the world today, people actually don't know us, like us, or trust us until after they have seen about 7 hours of our content,
Yeah,
right?
I
So
agree with that.
if I'm now cold emailing someone, cold contact that isn't a referral, right, which there's already that kind of established co-trust there. So now if I'm cold emailing, that will actually be a relationship that I nurture. So I actually just created a brand new connection cold email last week for a university. They've already done their programming for 2025, but you better believe I'm starting to nurture that connection for 2025 programming to be into that college. Right. So it's the long play, like cold emailing connections. It all has to be the long play, especially with higher ticket programs where I'm coming in as a vendor. But knowing where those contacts are and then who the decision makers are, that's a big thing that will help.
Right. What about podcasting? You start with a podcast invite, you interview them, and then you keep on following up with value, like I do. What's your podcast system?
Yeah. So there can be a really great podcast system as far as so multiple ways. So for podcasting, so with one of the next book that I'm writing, I'm actually doing a CEO interview, which will also be connections for that programming that I will be launching with my next book. And so then those are then the direct conversations, the direct decision makers, the direct connections that I can have based off of that programming. So having like a very specific segment of a show or a very specific, like interview type thing with a podcast for those connections. I think as long as you have the heart to know that that what you do is valuable, that how you can serve them, how you can help them. It's what I like to call the right come from. So you have to come with a heart of service. You have to come with the right intentions. Otherwise people can pick up the BS meter that you're actually just there to exploit them like that.
Love that. Where can people find out more about you, Charity?
I think the easiest place is to come say hi to me either on LinkedIn or on Instagram. I'm Charity Majors.
CharityMajors.com and CharlesCormier.com for another